Hey everyone, so last week I made a video where I did a blind comparison of my custom shop Gibson Les Paul to my PRS McCarty SC56. I had you guys comment which one you thought was guitar A or B and which one you preferred. A lot of people commented, so thank you to everyone who weighed in. If you haven't watched the blind comparison video yet and would like to before you find out the answer, then go ahead and pause this video now and go to the link in the description down below to go ahead and watch that comparison video first. For those who did already watch the video and are antsy to hear the results, thank you for your patience. I didn't reveal which one was which in the actual comparison video because I wanted to make sure everyone's answers in the comments were true and honest. All right, so it's the moment we've all been waiting for. Which one of these was guitar A? Which one was guitar B? Well, guitar A was the PRS, and guitar B, of course, was the Gibson. So there you go, there's the reveal. Now, there were too many comments for me to go through and tally up everyone's answers, but just scrolling through them, it's very clear that the majority of people guessed correctly as to which one was which. And regardless of whether they guessed right or wrong, the vast majority of people in the comment section agreed that these two guitars do sound different. There were a few dissenters in the comments who said that there's barely a difference, it doesn't really matter, they both sound the same, just get whichever one feels the best to you. And you know, if you really can't hear a difference, or at least not enough of a difference for it to matter to you, then that's totally fine. But if you ask me, these guitars do not sound the same, and based on the comments from the comparison video, it seems that most people would agree. But that aside, the thing that was the most interesting and surprising to me when scrolling through the comments was that overall, more people preferred guitar A over guitar B, despite the fact that most people correctly guessed that guitar A was in fact the PRS. That's surprising to me because in the initial video that prompted me to even do this blind comparison, which was the video that I titled "I'm a Les Paul guy, but this PRS converted me," in that video where I compared these exact same two guitars, but you could see which one I was actually playing, tons of people in the comments were saying that the Gibson sounds way better, the PRS sounds thin, it sounds awful, and so on. There were, of course, people saying nice things about the PRS's tone as well, but the overall sentiment of the comment section of that video was that the Gibson just sounded better. But again, in the blind comparison, more people preferred guitar A despite more people guessing that it was the PRS. And on top of that, there were a handful of commenters who said they preferred guitar A, but thought it was the Gibson. So if you're one of those people, then sorry, I guess you gotta go buy a PRS now. Just kidding. And to be fair, there were a good amount of people who preferred guitar B. But again, overall, more people preferred guitar A. And look, I know the way I'm presenting this makes it seem as if I'm trying to have this big gotcha moment like, see, the PRS does sound better, you're all wrong, or whatever. I promise that's not my goal here. When I set out to do this blind comparison thing, my goal was not to be pro PRS and anti Gibson. Now, I will admit, as someone who is a fan of PRS guitars, I do feel that a lot of people hold an unfair bias, stigma, whatever you want to call it, against PRS, and I was trying to challenge that with this blind comparison. But I'm not trying to bring down Gibson or Gibson fans in the process. I love Gibsons too. This is one of my favorite guitars of all time. What I'm mainly trying to do is bring up people's perception of PRS. So if the general perception of how Gibsons sound is up here, I just want to bring PRSs up to the same level. Because a lot of people seem to think they deserve to be down here on the floor or something, which again, I think is unfair. So do the results of this blind comparison prove my point? Well, I think they probably do. I will acknowledge there is a chance that I just happen to have more PRS fans watch the blind comparison video than the initial non-blind comparison. So there is a chance that that happened and it's skewing the results a little bit, but I personally feel like that's probably not the case for the most part. I believe that the results most likely show when you remove that visual element and people aren't 100% sure which one is which, especially when you're comparing one thing that's beloved like the Gibson to something that's maybe a little bit more criticized like the PRS. I think that doing a blind test like this removes people's biases and makes them listen more objectively. And even though more people did correctly guess that guitar A was the PRS, I think removing that absolute certainty and again removing the visual element, which with PRS guitars specifically, a lot of people just don't vibe with the aesthetic of them. I think when you remove those factors, it makes people more likely to really dig the sound of something like a PRS. And overall, I think the most important takeaway from the comments section of the blind comparison video is that the vast majority of people said, regardless of which guitar is which, they both sound great. And that right there tells me that I've essentially achieved my goal with this little two-part series here. I just wanted people to hear and acknowledge that both of these guitars are fantastic sounding. It's not a competition. You don't have to be team this brand or anti this brand or whatever. It doesn't have to be like that. You can appreciate both of these guitars for what they have to offer. And if you are someone who scoffs at PRS or Gibson or whatever other guitar brands, then I would encourage you to reflect on what what's making you feel these things and try to challenge your own biases. Maybe even do your own little blind test, you know, go to a guitar store with a friend and have them hand you guitars while you're blindfolded, or have them play a couple guitars while your back's turned, or whatever. Just do whatever you need to do to set aside your biases so you're truly listening with your ears and not your eyes. And if you're able to do that, then you may be surprised which guitar or whatever other piece of gear you actually like the most. So that'll do it for today's video. Thank you guys again for participating in this little experiment that I wanted to do. If you enjoyed this video, then I kindly ask that you like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell notification icon to get notified whenever I post new videos. It truly does help out my channel a lot. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you next time.